Hey, yo, what up? Welcome back. This is not a podcast. It's just my thoughts with Rob Markman. Told you that I wanted to double back and revisit this Ghostface Supreme Clientele 2 album and just talk about it a little bit more. I've been testing out this new format, like 5 things I love about an album, like the day it comes out. So I did that with Ghostface, five tracks that I loved, and I talked about the things that I love. But, for me, I think for anybody, but for me, it's really hard just like to on the spot to like formulate a review, to have something poignant to say, to have something like real to say, right? Because um if I haven't had the whole chance to digest the music yet, right? And if I'm being honest, when I first heard Supreme Clientele 2, I didn't like it. Like, not that I didn't like it. I didn't like it strong, but I was let down, and it had got better for me with each listen. And now it's been about 2 weeks, and I formulated my thoughts around it, right? Like, I really sat with it. I really lived with it. I've been listening to it. And I just want to talk about it, right? I want to give it that fair shot. And, the other thing is there's a lot going on this week. There are a lot of things that maybe don't have to do with the music directly, but, we talked about Hot 97 enough and Funk Flex. I might get back into that. We've been speaking about Drake. Spoke about the Young Thug leak calls, and there's a bunch going on. But I still want to make space for the music, to talk about the music, to dive into the music, to give the music a fair shot. Because if we don't have the music, what are we here for? So my thoughts around Ghostface Supreme Clientele 2. I think it's a solid album. There are parts of this album that I love, like, for real. I love, for example, when Ghost is over more of the classic, like, break beats or 80s and 90s style samples. I think Georgie Porgy is really good with that Toto sample. Gives me, MC Lyte flipped this track back in the day, like, and I always loved that MC Lyte track. So Love Me Anymore with Nas and the Love Don't Live Here Anymore sample. Like, I think that was dope. That was perfect storytelling. And then we have the break beats and beatbox records are really dope. Ghost sounds at home on these joints to me. My only criticism about that, and respect to DJ Ty Boogie, like, super respect. Ty Boogie is a dope DJ. But for Ghost, for Supreme Clientele, I wish we could have gotten a DJ with a more classic, like, recognizable voice. And this is not the shit on Ty Boogie, but, like, imagine, those breakbeats tracks or the beatbox tracks with, like, a Kid Capri over that. As soon as you hear his voice, like, universal, whether you're in Europe, Cali, New York, Florida, like, and you're a hip hop head, Kid Capri's voice. So I wish we could have got, like, a Kid Capri for that, or maybe even a Brucey B, or something like that. But the spirit of those records are dope, and something that I absolutely love on the album. Fourth Disciple is amazing. It sounds like it has the spirit of Ghostface's verse on Wu-Tang's Impossible, which was a classic Ghost verse, important verse in Ghost's career. That was off of the Wu-Tang Forever album. Such an emotionally charged verse, and Fourth Disciple feels like it's in the spirit of that. Candyland feels like it's in the spirit of The Forest, which is, again, another classic Ghostface track. Metaphysics is dope. You My Friend with Meth is fire. Come to find out that these joints are several years old. Ghost got on the Breakfast Club and said that Metaphysics is from 20 years ago. He said that Fourth Disciple was an older record from the vault. He said that Candyland, You My Friend, like, these were all older records that he held on to the tuck and waited to put out on Supreme Clientele 2. So there's a lot about this album that I love. My issue with the album, and I feel like a lot of y'all might feel the same way. The thing that I have a hard time contending with is that it's a sequel. That it's Supreme Clientele 2. It's a sequel to a classic record that, when that record dropped, like, in the moment, we held it in high regard and called it a classic when it dropped in the year 2000. And we've held it in high regard ever since. So even at the announcement of Supreme Clientele 2, my expectation now is sky high. From when I first pressed play. You know what I'm saying? My expectation is sky high. Ghost and his team addressed this. These weren't written in Ghost words, but they addressed this with a passage written on the back of the vinyl. I'm gonna read it here. It's kind of blurry, but let me see if I can zoom in. It says, 25 years ago, Supreme Clientele changed everything. It wasn't just an album. It was a movement, a coded language, a wild, soulful, off-kilter symphony of slang and emotion that rewired what hip-hop could be. It made you lean in closer and then blew the hinges off. Facts. Now, a quarter of a century later, Supreme Clientele 2 lands like a time capsule cracked open, vintage ghost, sharper than ever, but looser, freer. This isn't about chasing the past. This is Ghostface having fun with it, stepping back into the booth, not to prove something, but because the mic still talks back, the beats still bleed. This is the last of a certain breed of rap album. No trends, no pandering, just layers of refined loops, blistering bars, and unmistakable rasp of a storyteller who's seen it all, lived it twice, and still finds new ways to flip the script. Facts. His storytelling is still phenomenal. And then it ends Ghostface Killah, Supreme Clientele 2, not a sequel, an echo chamber. I'm sorry, an echo from a chamber that never closed. Let it spin, let it speak, let it ride out into the smoke. You're holding a piece of history. So, Ghost on his packaging is saying, yo, this is not a sequel, though it has part 2. So there's a little bit of mixed messaging there. So it even seems like for them and his team that they knew what the expectations of Supreme Clientele would do, and this passage seems to address it, maybe get in front of it, and maybe temper the expectations a bit while still keeping people excited, because there is plenty to be excited about on this album. So for me, right, when listening to music personally, like just absorbing someone's art, I always try to take the intention into account. I also try to take into account that it's not easy. I make my own records too. So also for me to get up here and critique somebody's thing, like I make records too, and I love my records. I think I'm dope. What I do really fulfills me, but I haven't made anything as impactful as a Supreme Clientele, as an Iron Man, as a Bulletproof Wallets. Let's just be honest, right? Let's just be very honest and self-aware. So I'm also really careful with how I told that line and I critique, especially a legend, but anybody who has the balls, like even if you're a brand new artist who recorded your first song, man, that takes bravery to go in there and then put it out into the world. So there's always a healthy respect that I have for that. But when absorbing someone's art, I always try to take the intention into account. What did the artist intend? It's important. Intention is important. And then execution is also important. Intention is important, and then execution. But, I got to be honest as a fan about my expectation, because Supreme Clientele meant that much to me, still means that much to me. And I didn't read this message before I listened. I caught wind of this message after I listened. I mean, as soon as I pressed play, the first voice that I heard on the album was Redman. And I love Red. Shout out to Muddy Waters too. Red, again, one of those ones. But that threw me off. Off the bat, I was like, I didn't feel like Supreme Clientele, because we had the Iron Man, the cartoon skits on the original. And not that I expected those, because I know the business, right? And I bet because of how the MCU took off and how Iron Man as a character has took off since then, because Supreme Clientele, the original, predates the MCU, the Iron Man movies, the big explosions of the MCU. I bet it's a lot harder to clear those sound bites now from the old Iron Man cartoon. Just anything having to do with Marvel, I bet it's a lot harder to clear that and get that a part of your project and what they want to be associated with, right? Even though Ghost, there was a scene with Ghost in the original Iron Man movie, so they, the MCU had paid. I think they cut it out. They left it on the cutting room floor, but Marvel has acknowledged Ghost, Tony Stark, Iron Man, like they've acknowledged that, but business-wise, I didn't expect Iron Man skits. It's a lot harder to clear. It's a lot harder to do. But what I'm saying was with the intro off the bat, I'm like, this don't feel like a Supreme Clientele thing, right? And if this album was titled something else, I think for me, it would have hit better. It would have landed better for me. I also think it could have been a few joints shorter. 22 joints is a lot. I would have probably left off Curtis May. I would have kept breakbeats or beatbox, but not both, because I think they gave us a similar feeling, and I think maybe just for sake of shortening the album, I think one or the other, a breakbeats or beatbox. I probably would have kept breakbeats, and like I said, I would have put like a Kid Capri on it. I would have left off Rap Kingpin, because even the first single, going back to, what was it, Mighty Healthy, I believe. I'm going off the head, but the first single, the Rap Kingpin single, harkened back to Supreme Clientele. So again, that further sets up the expectation, like, oh, this is going to be a sequel. I would have left that off. I would have left off Soul Thing. And not because it wasn't dope. It was just like, all right, if you have to just make really hard decisions, we could have put those out in other places or whatever. The Redman intro I would have left off, and I would have just shortened it up, right? I would have made it more succinct. And now look, let's not be fools. Also, there's a benefit to calling it Supreme Clientele too. You pique the interest of the fans. It's good marketing, and potentially you get more people to pay attention right out the gate in 2025, when getting people to pay attention to things, music is a lot harder. You could just look at this channel and look at the video. Like, you probably look at the views of what this does as opposed to what the Young Thug Kendrick video that I just did, or my response to Drake. Like, artists are not just competing with other artists for attention and to listen. They're competing with apps, with just other subjects, talking points, other forms of entertainment. Because if you're watching my channel, you're not listening to an album. If you're watching TikTok, you're not listening to an album. If you're looking at Reels, you're not listening to an album. So I get it. So Supreme Clientele too, as a marketing ploy, kind of felt like that. And then the message that they put on the back of the vinyl is, you kind of wanted your cake and you wanted to eat it too, right? So you wanted the interest, the lore, the attraction that came with Supreme Clientele too, the excitement that came from it, but didn't necessarily want to be judged on it based off of just what I'm reading off the back of that vinyl. So while I respect Ghost's artistry infinitely, like supremely respect his artistry, and he's one of those ones, and he, just one of the greatest catalogs in hip hop history. To me, one of my favorite catalogs. While I respect his artistry, calling it Supreme Clientele 2 was a choice. I wish, and again, just the fan of me, I wish it would have been a different one. But the album is still like dope. I still like the album. It's still a solid album. I'm not without my criticisms or critique, and I try to do that as respectfully as possible. But those are just my thoughts. Y'all gotta let me know what y'all think in the comments, and we'll talk about it. We're gonna talk about it a lot. You're gonna see a lot of activity on the YouTube. So subscribe, put the notifications on. We're gonna talk about a lot this week. All right. Want to double back on that Joey Badass album as well. I did 5 tracks that I love, and I formulated some thoughts around Joey Badass. I want to talk about the Chance the Rapper album also, which I haven't gotten a chance to do a video on, just like time constraints, but I've been listening to that album, and I think it's a really dope album. So we're gonna double back. It's gonna have a lot more conversations. So hit me in the comments, like, subscribe, do all of that. Until the next time. Peace.